Full Ahead, the podcast about ships and shipping, with Alistair Eagles and Nigel Thompson.
It's January, it's 2026, and welcome back to the Full Ahead podcast. And we are currently sat in a warm-ish cafe, looking out over Morecambe Bay. It's a lovely sunny day, but it is cold out there, so we've escaped the cold. We've got a nice hot cup of coffee, and we're here kicking off the year for the Full Ahead podcast.
And we hope you had a good Christmas and New Year. We've certainly been very busy planning the year to come and also looking back on last year as well, our first year for the Full Ahead podcast. And thank you very much to people who've been in touch as well. We had a few people commenting on our episodes as well. Wayne Murray, must mention Wayne. Thanks, Wayne, for getting in touch. He says he's referring to Harvey, our first ever guest, do you remember?
Harvey was great. I mean, there have been so many great guests looking back over the first kind of few months of the Full Ahead podcast, and really looking forward, knowing in the background what's coming up. We've got some great guests coming up for this year. More will be revealed, so watch this space, but it's going to be a really good year. I'm really excited about what's happening next.
And also, by the way, we heard from somebody called Steph Gold. Steph, thanks for listening as well. She says that was really interesting, guys. Harvey's story is super inspiring. Is Harvey on commission, do you think? Do you think he should sponsor this podcast?
I even saw him this morning. I saw that Seamal are just delivering the first of the Turkish ferries for Cowell. And if you zoomed in on the picture, there was a smiling Harvey, ready to get back behind the wheel, I think, because he's been out in that shipyard for a while now. So it'd be great to see that ship, the Isle of Isla, isn't it? And yes. Harvey, when he's back in Scottish waters before too long.
Excellent stuff. We look forward to that. And as Alistair's saying there, we've got lots of guests coming this year. And by the way, thank you as well for your contributions. If you've got some suggestions of people we should talk to or topics we need to talk about. I mean, coming up, for example, we're talking about a new ship that's coming to the Irish Sea that's going to have a sail power to it. How do they work? I mean, you know a bit more than I do, but I'm curious.
Yeah, we haven't really covered the environmental angle too much, whether it be wind power, as you just talked about, whether it be how to make the hull of the ship more slippery in the water, some of the environmental issues around ports and how ports kind of move towards net zero. So yeah, there's going to be some quite environmental focus in the coming weeks, but also some kind of more frontline stuff as well. We've hopefully got a visit to a dry dock lined up very soon.
Yeah, lots coming up and lots to look out for in an industry that's changing by the day, it seems. For example, news this week, a new CEO of DFDS was announced. It appointed Michael Hansen as its new chief executive. It will succeed the current CEO, Torben Carlson, from the 1st of July as well. So big change at one of the world's biggest shipping companies.
Yeah, not easy for some of these big companies at the moment. You know, clearly a change at the top of DFDS, and they've had a more challenging time in the recent year, probably. Then you also see P&O Ferries losses yesterday, 99 million losses last year, slightly worse than the year before. So it's not an easy time in the ferry industry, particularly on those companies that, you know, maybe have expanded or maybe have a big passenger market. And going back to the ferry conference in Malmo, we heard about that from Peter Gellert. That's a great episode to listen to, where he kind of gave his view of the future and what the challenges are for the ferry industry. But we don't only talk about ferries, and in this week's episode we're going to be talking to a real character from the Irish Sea, someone who's been involved in fishing, in the lifeboats, and even running a small ferry service very local to us here.
Yeah, we'll hear from Tony Cowell a little later on, but Alice, I want to mention at Christmas I went to, not Holyhead, but just outside Triada Bay, if you know it, on Anglesey. A fantastic view of the sea. We're never far from the sea. I think our family just love being close to anywhere that's got water, to be fair. But we were there on Christmas Day at Holyhead, and 2 Stena ships tied up for the duration, just for the day, and then the day after they're back to it. So, thoughts again with people who work very hard, when most of us are enjoying a bit of a break.
Yeah, you had a lovely sea view from the pictures out there, but soon after your visit I see one of the ships had a little bit of a bump in Holyhead, so whether you're a bad omen or not down there, we need to watch where you go in the future and see what happens. But Holyhead has not had an easy kind of 12 months really, with the big outage a year ago, and this outage again, and then one before Christmas, and it really shows how critical some of this infrastructure is, whether it be the ships or the berths, and just how reliant we are as an island community on shipping.
Yeah, and I think we perhaps need to look at that, maybe another future edition, maybe about keeping ports active and busy making sure perhaps the weather as well, you're building in sort of reliability and making sure it can cope with increasing numbers of storms and just pressure of work. The fact that lorries are getting heavier, there's constant flow of traffic. The A5 was incredibly busy. I didn't know, for example, till recently, Holyhead, the second busiest port in the UK after Dover.
Absolutely. And in the last episode, when we were talking to the Coast Guard team that did the TV series for Channel 5 about Coast Guards, just amazed me the number of volunteers that are working day and night as well to keep people safe around our coasts. And as we sit out looking out the window here today, the local lifeboat, which in Morecambe isn't a lifeboat but is a hovercraft, is out on trials, and even today there are people testing themselves, making sure they're ready for when the next incident occurs around our coast, and hats off to them really.
So we've got lots coming up in 2026, but also I think it's good to look back a little bit about episodes, maybe if you're a new listener to the podcast that you may have missed. Any highlights?
Yeah, for me, obviously, going back to the start, and that very first episode with Harvey, that's well worth a listen. A kind of inspirational story about someone who's got a dream to be in the shipping industry and how he fulfills that dream with determination. That's a great episode. Go and listen to that, and no doubt we'll hear from Harvey again in the future. For me personally, I enjoyed speaking to Dave McNamee, Captain Dave McNamee, who was awarded in the Honours List earlier this year. But he was one of the captains I worked with in my career on the Irish Sea. And to see him back on the Danny, the historic steam tug, on the River Mersey as captain when he was first on that ship at the age of 5, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just an amazing kind of circular tale, and some of those kind of salty sea dog kind of tales. I just thought that was a great day out for me. What about you, Nigel? What's been a highlight for you?
I think there's so many. The Danny was a great day, and I still recall it, vividly. It was a fantastic experience. But I think going to Malmo and seeing and speaking to some senior leaders from across Europe, from all different walks of life, from ferry companies, from port operators as well, from the far north of Norway to Greece and everywhere in between. You get a real sense that the industry, first of all, is a very small world. Everyone seems to know everyone's business, and there's lots of kind of nods and winks, I think, about what's going on. But it is a community, and I guess you found that during your time working there.
Yeah, of course, everyone kind of knows each other to an extent. Although at a competitive level, you are competitors and you do your own thing. But nice to see young people at that conference too. Conferences can sometimes be a bit stuffy and a bit stale, but great to see some young people, some young women, some confident young women at that conference too. And it gives you hope about the state of the industry, although no doubt challenges ahead environmentally, legislation-wise. There's lots and lots going on and so much to talk about. But I just thought the first few episodes, the first few months of the Full Ahead podcast were brilliant. I'm really excited about the future of the podcast. And I never thought for a million years when I retired from my job in the ferry industry that I'd be helping to present a podcast that's listened to now in over 50 countries, and thousands of listeners that are growing every episode and every month.
And from my perspective, I'm learning so much about it. I mean, this image perhaps of the industry has been kind of steady as she goes, kind of no change. That is completely untrue. Innovation, it has to innovate or it will die. And the need to do that is important. But how it's happening to things like battery-powered ships, ticketless journeys for passengers. Absolutely fascinating stuff. So the pitch is we'd like to do more, and we want to try and get out about to try and make sure we do continue to shine the spotlight on the industry, but of course we need some help.
Yeah, and I guess the challenge going forward is just how we do that. So we can do lots of good stories around the UK coast, and we can do those kind of fairly cost effectively. This has been a labour of love for us. It's been a bit of fun, and it's turning into something bigger, and because of that we'd like to do some stuff further afield, and to do that we probably need to get some finance behind us in some way. So we are looking for sponsors for the channel. We are looking for people who'd like to help us to really bring more and more stories about ships and shipping to you, our listeners. So if you'd like to kind of know more about that, if you'd like to kind of find out how you could be more involved with the Full Ahead podcast, please get in touch. But for now, let's move on to this week's guest. Nigel, you've been down in Fleetwood.
Absolutely, and what a privilege it was. Tony Cowell has had an experience like a few others. Over 50 years he's been at sea, starting out in the fishing industry, which Fleetwood of course is famous for, but then running a vital lifeline, ferry link between a place called Knott End and Fleetwood, which we'll hear about shortly as well. But that isn't enough for Tony. He's been involved in the lifeboat and he's currently the chairman of Fleetwood Lifeboat as well, a busy lifeboat station on the northwest coast. And he's been telling me in great detail about his career, about his father and his grandfather went before him, but also about his hopes for the future. And he does talk actually about, that he thinks the industry is in quite good shape because there are people who are interested in joining maritime in whatever shape or form. Because, as he says, we're an island nation, we depend on our seafarers and our shoreside staff as well. So let's have a listen to Tony, who I met very recently in Fleetwood. Great story to tell, and I hope you enjoy the interview.
This is Fullerhead.
My first trip to sea was when I was 3 years old. My father had a boat called Llewellyn with my uncle, Otis Wales. They used to go fishing out of the Jubilee Quay in Fleetwood. This particular day, my dad was looking after me. And of course, the boat started coming in with lots of fish on the deck. Skates at the time. You had to catch the fish when it was going. And that was the money, you know what I mean. With that, he got me down the ladder, put me aboard the boat. She had a little cockpit, the ship, and off we went to sea. And of course I loved it. I was absolutely made up. Seagulls, I can still remember them, even though I was only a little lad. The seagulls coming round, flying, the smell of diesel, the excitement when you're all in and there's fish all around. We stayed out 24 hours. So when we came back in, my grandmother and my mother were stood on the quayside. And I don't think there was the story with the family, they wasn't very happy. And my grandmother never talked to my father for 3 months. But
I thought you'd been kidnapped. Press gallery to see,
Yeah, but like I say, them days it was get money when you can, it was hard times. I was helping my dad do some nets and I went over the side and banged me eye. And my dad wouldn't take me home, so my Uncle Sam took me home on his back to my mother with his black eye and swore I wouldn't go on the boat, but I was crying that much to get on the boat. She reneged and let me go on. And like I say, I was always pleasuring as a kid and on the boats going to sea in the summer holidays when school was out. 9, 10, I'd be pleasuring and going to sea.
And how far out would you go at that time?
We'd be fishing. We'd be fishing just in Morecambe Bay. We'd be fishing off Blackpool and Liverpool and round local, inshore waters. And even we went to the Isle of Man, round the Isle of Man and things like that, because I remember going in and we had some good times. Going to excitement, going to an island, you know what I mean? Telling the lads at school, we went to the Isle of Man and was catching fish, and then we had some repairs to do and painting up. That's how you get into boats and loving them. I loved working on the engine and getting mucked up.
Coming from Fleetwood, I guess, with your dad involved, and I think your granddad, and was it great-granddad you said as well?
So I sailed with my, this is what I say, we went in the ship called the Plough and the Harvest Morn. And my uncle, Gary, he was with my dad, and my granddad, and me, and my dad. So I've sailed with, my granddad was, the first time I ever heard my grandfather swear, was at sea, and he says, you discipline over your mouth, lad. He said, when you're at home, you've got women and children there. He said, when you're out here, you're a man, and that's the way they was. I thought the world of my granddad. He'd done a lot in his life. And then, of course, after my childhood, even though my father, when I was 8 years old, was in a bad accident in the Pygmalion, he was very, very badly burned. 40-50% of burns. He was at sea, the ship had sank with the fire, my dad had to come through the fire, and in them days, our times have changed. My dad always drummed this when I was going skipper, health and safety. Health and safety books have been changed because of accidents or loss of life. And he said, what you should do as a skipper, make sure you learn all them. And when he was in the Pygmalion, they didn't have an escape hatch in the cabin. So all boats have to have an escape hatch now. A gas bottle, colour gas bottle, didn't have a guard on the valve. And that's what happened. The colour gas bottle went down the cabin, it wasn't tied proper. Went down in the cabin, they had a little coal stove. We knocked the valve off, caught fire off the coal fire, and it was like a flamethrower. It was rolling round the deck because it was rolling about the ship. My dad jumped out of his bunk, he was in bunk, somebody else was on watch, and run into the engine room. Knowing he couldn't get out, the other crew managed to get out of the road, and my dad was in the engine room, and while he was in the engine room, he's looking at the ladder, and all the flames are going to the nearest oxygen, which is up the ladder into the wheelhouse. He said he could remember just holding on, and his skin was dripping off his hands, so he thought the only way he's going to get out, he was thinking of his family, you know, and kids especially, and that, to get up that ladder. As he went up, he was in the flames, and he jumped into the sea. They got him out, got the life raft. He was in the life raft for 16 hours, and when the lifeboat, Ramsey lifeboat, went there and a fishing boat, they put him on the shore, and the doctors was looking after the other two lads. They said, "This man's dead, my father," and they'd put a blanket over him. He started to move, my dad, and the doctor said, "No, he's still living," and they put an hole, he had a hole in his lip where they got some oxygen pipe down, like, to get him in. He was very, very lucky. 1964, you're looking at TT for just about so. Ramsey Coxswain Hospital had the best doctors for burns at that particular time, and he was in the Isle of Man for 6 months. They flew me and my brother over with my grandmother and my stepmother, and flew us over to, thinking it might be this last rite, and then he came back, and I think it was Liverpool or Manchester burns unit. It was 14 months before he was could go out. He's a very, very brave man, very brave, you know, to go back to sea. And then with his money, he got a partner called Dave Rainford. Together they purchased the Northfleet. Then they bought the Lister, Constant Hope and Norfords, and they had 8 ships.
Can I ask you, having heard that story about your father, you know, I mean, you could be forgiven for not wanting to go anywhere near a ship, having heard and witnessed in his recovery. You know, he was very lucky by the sounds of it. What made you still determined to go to sea?
I loved it. I just excitement, I suppose. My grandfather, when I was at sea with my grandfather, he woke me up, and I'd only been 9, and he woke me up early hours of the morning. We'd been out at sea for 36 hours, 40 hours, and sometimes we'd spend 3 or 4 days out there. And he woke me up this early morning, he says, "Right, come up here with me." So he goes up, and we're on the bridge, and he said, "Now watch there." And the next minute the sun was coming up, and it was just like a golden ball just coming out of the sea, and it was absolutely calm. It's like a mirror. And he says, "Now you know there's a God. Look at that. Who could create that?" And I never forgot it. As a kid, it impressed me, you know, so much that it was so beautiful. My dad said I had to go to the navigation school. When you're a young lad, you go there and you do your training, and then you go to sea as an observer on a trawler, and then you go as a brassy, and then decky learner, and then a full decky. I was very fortunate. Tommy Stone used to be on the inshore boats, so he knew me. I could mend. When I was 13, I was making nets with my dad. So everybody called me his pet because I could do and I used to show some of the lads. So ended up leaving the wet observer on the Y Majestic, and the ship that's in Alley Sounds now, that never came home. She run aground. I could still see the faces of the first ship. You know, a trawl, it's a big ship to me then.
It makes such an impression, doesn't it?
Yeah. One of the things my grandfather says is, if God left something to teach us, he left the sea, because it can be so beautiful, cold calm, and then it can be so violent and rough. Who do you cry out for? in them cases when, you know, you're out there on your own or you're at the mercy of the sea, you always ask for God. And I don't care, everybody's religious when they're out there, because they help for help, you know, and sometimes that's what happens, you know. And it just stuck in my mind that me grandfather and me dad, but the sights, I wish I had cameras. Now I wish I had cameras to show me children and my grandchildren. The fog that's about 3 foot high, the mist in the summer, and you're going through at night and the stars are all lit up and there's not a cloud in the sky, and this fog, and there was 200 ships on the prawn ground, all towing, and this fog's just going off the bow. It's so beautiful. Yeah. The jellyfish, all different colours, you know, and that's phosphorus in the water, and you could see, and they're all coming up, you know. The sights are so beautiful, you know. Nature is a beautiful thing, and when you're a fisherman, I think that's why, this is what I'm told off my grandfather, so I don't, he always said that's why he picked fishermen as disciples, because they appreciate the elements.
You're so close to nature, and obviously the weather affects whether you can go out or not, how successful you might be with the fish, or the shoals are going to come or not. You know, it's so, you're so linked at one with, even with, you know, high tech devices and things like that. There's still the chance, isn't there, that you might be unlucky. And I guess that's why you do what you do. It's a challenge. And is that how it was as a career, that you were always? It wasn't an easy life, was it?
No, you went out there, and I had. Three men who had mortgages, and when I was 19, and then I went skipper of the ship called the Constant Hope. These experienced men, one was Ronnie Blowers and one was Eddie Shard, and they've been boatswains in big ships, you know, and the decline of the Iceland waters, but these was experienced men, but they had mortgages, you know, and to pay for a home. So at 19, you know, just going on to nearly 20 then, and I had a family myself, and I was thinking, we've got to pay the bills, got to pay for the ship, and the only way you're going to do that is catch fish, and that's the only way you can earn money, is when you go to sea, you've got to try and get the right place, try and get the... but it was a great challenge when you went out and you was free. I could go anywhere. It was great, and I was probably one of the most successful ones as well in the firm. Always in the top 3 skippers.
What was it down to? Was it an element of luck, or was it your dad telling you, your granddad telling you where to go?
I'll give me father, more experience than me. He was a very good fisherman, my dad. And... he put it down, you've got 80% luck, 20% skill. So I used to think, you know, maybe 50-50, but, you know, it was being at the right place at the right time. One of me crew members, who was a mate of the ship, and he said to me, Tony, just go and get rolled in. Where we're going, because I'd changed my mind. And he says, every time you change your mind, we come off bad, because we end up with where you was going to go, and there's the fish. So he used to say, get rolled in and we're going to the place that you want to go to. So, and that was, you know, the way it is. And it was a great, I can look back on my life, and a great career. I loved it.
I'm sure. Was there much rivalry, did you find? Because it's a small town in Sicily.
Yeah, it's a small town. There's always... bit of rivalry. You want to try and beat him. Me dad always told me, he says, get in pub. I says, why? He said, you'll find out where everybody's been. And it was true, you know, you'd be trying to get little hints where what was he there? Oh, he was catching a little bit. I know where it is. So with the different sea bottom and the banks and things like that, knowing where you go, I think I know where that fish is, you know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10 you get the fish, you know. We had some good days, and there's some bad days, you know, when nothing goes right, and I used to say, take a turn out of yourself, go back in port and then come back out again. And that was like have a day off.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I'd say to the lads, look, nothing's going right. We're busted up and the nets were mending. So you go in, take a turn out of yourself, come back with that fresh attitude, positive thinking, and off we go again.
You strike me as somebody who's not easily kind of put down. You have a positive kind of way about you. Is that essential?
Worst things happen at sea, and this is what we say, You'll read this in the archives. There was a ship called the Crystal that I rescued the crew off in the DJ, and it was a ship that couldn't sink, they said, because it had that many troubles. It run aground, it hit another ship, and then this particular night it was a Northeast 9, and we was coming home, and all the fleet was coming in, and it sent a mayday out, and I was on the air, and somebody said Albert's in trouble. Albert Dix was the skipper. So I turned round and then got alongside him, and I said, I'll get the crew off, Albert. Got alongside, got my crew to get a big tyre in between us, because it was, and started getting the crew off. Anyway, we started drifting apart, and the oldest of the crew member wouldn't jump, so I got 3 of them aboard. He was the 4th. So I had to go around it, and he wouldn't jump. He said, he won't jump. So I got one of the lads, went round, and said, right, hold the wheel, jumped on his boat, grabbed hold of his neck and his bum, and chucked him over to my ship, jumped back over, and then set off again, And then I said, do you want me to leave the vessel? Because once it's abandoned, it's up for salvage. And I took the crew back to Fleetwood. Poor old Albert, he was being sick, it really, the boat was full of water. She didn't sink. And one of the ships, because she'd run aground a couple of times, her planks had opened up in the weather. Right. So once she stopped going ahead, the water wasn't coming in. So a skipper called Brian Webster and Colin Geddes was on the Irish Dean, I think it was. It was the Irish Dean. He used to go diving for scallops in Auburn. That was, dived over the side, got aboard the Crystal, started pumping her out, then started the engine, and then the next morning brought her in. So I was in there with the crew, and then he's brought the boat back in, and he got over £2,000 salvage money. Yeah. So I rescued the crew and got nothing. Yeah, well, we got praise. Yeah, we got praise. And one thing about the inshore lads is always, if you towed anybody in, and you never charged them, you never took money. You know what I mean? We was all in the same boat, So your favour for you, favour for us,
Because you never know, it could be you next.
Yeah, it could have been you. Yeah.
Talking of rescues, it seemed a perfect time to talk about your work with the RNLI, the Lifeboat Institution. Yeah. How did that come about?
Well, I'll have to mention the accident. I had an accident at sea in 1990. An engine and match came down. It was a 1/4-inch steel plate, and I was in a ship called a Strathgarry, which is a Sputnik. We used to call them a Sputnik. It's like a small trawler. It's a big ship and the engine and match is a 1/4-inch plate, and they'd altered some of the hinges. Because I did the engines as well, always was a skipper engineer. So I looked after the engines as well as doing the skipper's job, So anyway, this hatch came down and as I was coming up, it's about 20 foot up this ladder, and it came down, hit me on the head, and then my legs went through the ladder, and it was a storm. It never happens in a nice and calm. It always happens in a gale of wind. The mate was Jimmy Betty, and he could hear me, so I was getting the lads off the deck as well, and he came down. I managed to get up, but I knew I'd hurt myself. I knew I'd hurt me back. I had blood coming from my head, gash in my leg where the corner of it had gone, and my back was really bad. So I got up, got her down the wind, and I brought her home. And then I led on the floor, trying to get up, trying to take DG. Cut a long story short, I went to see her. I was taking painkillers after painkillers. And I collapsed, and I ended up in Blackpool Vic. And then in 2000, I wanted to try and get back to work and get back, normal life. And I went on this shore trust. I was on mobility and all this lot at the time, and they had this shore trust where you could go without, as long as you worked 16 hours, it wouldn't affect, you got like 6 months, to try and get back. And I was successful at driving. I went chauffeuring for one of the local firms here, Peter he was. Oh, and I'll have to mention this, for the 10 years that I was injured and got through it, I was also football secretary for Fleetwood Gym, and also managing teams and for the young kids, and doing something for the community, so which I've always thought was very important, because we're all a fishing community. I was offered the job to take one of the ships, and I did all right, but the restrictions was unbelievable by then. My missy didn't really like me going back to sea. I was going to Australia to see my daughter. Darren Greenwood, and his wife was having a meal, and he says, I'm contractor for the new ferry, and we're getting a brand new ferry, and would you be interested in this new ferry? I says, oh, when's it coming, like, He said, well, we're doing training now, and if you get your boat masters, because I had my skipper's tickets and that, I says, oh, well, get boat master passing, and you can take it. I said, all right. And my missus said, will he be home every night? And he went, yeah. He said, he's having it. I said, we ain't even talked about money or wage. He said, you're having it, you're taking it.
This is the Fleetwood Knott End. I mean, she could probably see you at work, couldn't she? Never mind, worry about where you work.
She could come down. She loved it. Absolutely loved me being home. She rung me up when I was on the Artemis, and the waves was coming over the veranda, and we had a satellite phone. What's all that water? I said, a wave just hit the bridge. She went, oh my God, why are you telling me that? So she never liked me going, and I went into the Knott End ferry then, and I've never looked back. When something happens in life, it's meant to be, and that was the making. I feel it was a privilege, an honour and a privilege, to be the skipper of the Wayros. It's been fantastic,
I get the community, the fact that you're linking to Knott End and Fleetwood together, and I'm sure you get your regulars, but compared to fishing, I mean, it's a different way of life, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what learnt me as well with the community, with the children, when I was, there was 250 kids at the Fleetwood Gym, at the football section, with that community spirit, knowing it was still there in Fleetwood, we've got a great town. And that fishing heritage has kept us so close. Everybody knew everybody. It was like if anybody was in trouble, you was there. If a ship was in trouble, or a ship was lost, or a person was hurt at sea, they was there. I could mention the fisherman's mission, the mission man that helped my family when my dad was Superintendent Brown, you know what I mean? It was, I still know him, and George is now in Fleetwood, and he's fantastic, you know what I mean? A great community spirit. So me going on there, I get on with everyone, and some of the people that I've got the honour to say they're my friends, and they always, good morning, how you doing? And I ask them how they're doing.
The people and their stories. This is Full Ahead, the podcast about ships and shipping.
Tell us us about your lifeboat experience. You got this fantastic certificate here, the certificate of service, and it shows that you started your service in, was it 2008?
Yeah, 2007 they came to me, and eventually it took me on as a crew member. I felt I was too old. I felt like I'd had too many injuries, you know what I mean? Life had took its toll. The honour of being a part of the lifeboat, because when I was growing up, I knew all the coxswains by name. Most of the school did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We'd go down when there was the maroon went off. We'd be on our bikes. Our dads, our uncles, our family would be out there on boats. So 2 went off. We know it was a ship. So I'll be, especially what happened to my dad. You know, we'd be down, and the lifeboat station was the community would be there. You know what I mean? And all the kids. And so to my hero at the time was old Coos Wright, and he was on the inshore boats, and he helped me when I went skipper with lots of fishing tours as well. And there's a big film about Coos, an old film, in the Tishel Russell when he's launching it, pedalling on his bike because the maroon's gone off, you know, to launch the boat down the slip. I could name a lot of all on the inshore on the inshore fleet, you know, the fishing boats, and they were great men. They knew what they was doing, you know. They knew the area. So eventually, I went from like you see on the from crew member to navigator. Well, I was second coxswain, and then I went to first coxswain, and we got the new boat by then, Kenneth James Pierpoint. The coxswain job at William Street, the first one, I was so proud. And my mum was still alive, and my dad. So they were so proud. And I love the volunteers. You know, the volunteers, you've got to imagine an organisation in this day and age with volunteers who go out risking their lives for no reward, you know, and where else but this great country, you know what I mean? Our seafarers that's the history we've got behind us, these people, you know, and to be a part of that was fantastic, you know.
And to be coxswain as well, when you're carrying the can out, you're responsible for all these volunteers, the safety.
You're responsible for your crew and to the rescue, and sometimes you get out there and it's successful sometimes, and sometimes it's not as successful, but you're bringing them home. The coxswain is somebody to be proud of, but his crew is essential. They're out there and they go through, some of them are seasick, carry on doing their job, and they put their lives at risk. And my missus I'll give you the crew's families. So my missus always taught me an important lesson when I was coxswain. I'd been out on a job, and we had this spurt of 4 or 5 storms, named storms, and we was out. It was December time, and we was out in them, and somebody had gone off the end of the pier. Blackpool couldn't launch, it was that bad, and the helicopter couldn't be there. It was on another job in Wales. So it was only us. One of the crew members said to me, is it not too bad? I said, well, the only chance he's got is us. We've got a boat there that can do anything. It's beautiful. Off we went. And we was out for 8 hours. So the shore crew, because we're searching, even if we, like I said before, bringing closure to the family, it might not preserve life, but we got a closure. And we came, like I say, 8 hours. Well, my missus used to get the AAS up on the computer, and she could see where the lifeboat was. And this particular night, with the storm or whatever, the lifeboat disappeared. I kept sitting down. So with that, she was ringing the station, and she couldn't get anybody. It was early hours of the morning, so she didn't like ringing about panicking or all that, but she was panicking. And she said to me, "You've got to have somewhere you can get in contact after the incident." But when I came in, I got to the door. Well, we got home, you know.
Yeah.
My phone had died.
Yeah.
Some phone had died, so I don't usually answer it anyway. You know, when you're at the job, you've got that much going on. And one of the other crew had ring up or something. When we got home, I came straight in, I knocked on that, and I can see her now. She was crying and hitting me at the same time. All volunteers have got families who go through the same anxiety, and they love you, you know. That's what it is.
And it's great to see what you've got in front of you. It's history, isn't it? And you've got, you know, such a proud history of not just working as a fisherman, but in a lifeboat for all that time as well.
Yeah.
18 years is a long old time. And I think it's important to recognise it's not just you, is it? It's your family, it's your kids, it's your grandkids, you know, it's your neighbours as well. They'll worry about you and look out for you as well. That must be such a nice feeling that you're not on your own.
Yeah, when the pages went off, I'd be running out and the neighbours would say, "There he is." And one particular job was having a barbecue here. The pages went off. Off I went, did the job, come back, just got back to the barbecue, just about to be back. Off I went again, 3 times. And Kerry says, when I got back about 8 o'clock, "Everybody enjoyed the barbecue." So that's the cost.
This is Full Ahead.
When you do rescue somebody, you feel so proud, you know, that you've made that difference. You've saved that life. Even dogs. I always remember the crew going mad. We've been out rescuing speedboat, and as we was towing the boat back, we had the 2 casualties aboard, a woman and a dog. The woman was rescued by our inshore boat, and the dog had gone and got caught by the tide, and away it went. And we're searching as we're coming in. But we had 2 casualties to get back, you know what I mean, in the boat. As we're going down, it says, "Right, lads, keep your eyes out, there's a dog." Oh, and it was a beautiful dog. It was a golden retriever. It was a beautiful dog. I say sometimes God is looking down. I think he loves dogs as well. The tide had just swirled it round and it was paddling away right in front of us. And the crew, they didn't half make a fuss. And you know what I mean, we got it aboard and we patted it and that, you know. But the whole team, you know, you can imagine the relief. And yeah, jobs to remember, the horses, I remember that, and the ferry was involved as well. They also got a quicksand trying to get it up, and that was a horrendous job. I got the crew, because the ILB had gone to them, and we could see from the lifeboat station across that Knott End where the horse had stuck, and got into the ferry. I took some of the Coast Guard team there in the ferry, and my son was the other skipper, you know, the skipper of the ferry at the day. I was coxswain of the lifeboat on duty. We got the life jackets underneath the horse. This is how serious it was. They had the vet stood by. The tide comes in at a foot every 5 minutes when it's a big tide, and it's 6 knots. So this horse was, you know, it wouldn't get up, and there's a film, a video with the lads all laugh. You know, or you can hear me shout, "Come on, Ernie, come on!" And the girl, she was only 15, it was her horse. As she started shouting the name, and I started, and the ears on the horse pricked up. Could hear its name, and I said, "Right, shout!" And eventually, the horse got out, and to everybody, the passengers on the ferry, the Coast Guard team, you know, so we was all jubilant. Their rewards enough, you know, to save lives, and it's just not about people, it's about I know that horse, that girl would have been devastated, you know what I mean.
How long will you stay involved in the lifeboat? And you're chairman now. Is it something you'll do as long as you can, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, as long as I'm useful. And then, of course, I'll answer the phone, and if we've got people who have events, we'll put events on, or talks. You know, I can go around and talk to, which I have done, Women's Institute and things like that. And it profiles, you know, the safety of the sea, and trying to promote that as well. We've got a team that does that, and I'm trying to keep involved as long as I'm needed. You know what I mean? If I miss the boats, as you can imagine, I miss her so much. You know, because going to sea was it's been a privilege. You know. I've had a very good life, you know what I mean. It's a sea career. Ups and downs in other life, but sea career, but not so bad. And I met a fantastic lady who supported me right through. One of the rescues in the ferry, we've done 27 rescues in the ferry. These lads have been working on this boat and went skiing. And the speedboat's going with the skier behind it. We're on the ferry, boat goes a full circle, he gets flung out of the boat, no kill call on, skier sinks, so we had to go out, and of course the speedboat's just going round in circles, speeding away. Now they're very lucky they didn't go. We've had that accident where the lady lost her leg and things like that. So we went up to rescue him, and as we gets up, lowers the gangway to get him aboard, he shouts, "I've got nothing on." Because as he only had his shorts, it was a red hot day, and it had about 20 passengers aboard. And lovely, his shorts got caught on the handle, and as he's flung him out of the boat, his shorts stopped. So we had a bit of a rag in front of him. And some of the old ladies, you know, she said, "I haven't seen as much as that for 20 odd years." She said, "I'm coming on this ferry more often."
I don't really know where to start on that one, Nigel, and I know that is an abbreviated version of a much longer conversation, but that was so kind of wide-ranging, from his kind of injury and how that impacted his life, and then the whole kind of story of fishing and how fishing has changed in the local kind of coast here, and then moving on to his work with the small ferry operation and then the lifeboat. Such a passion for the sea, and quite deep in places too. I mean, quite kind of deep conversations there. So yeah, I found that really inspiring, and actually I'm going to ask you for the full version, and I'm going to do the kind of full version next time I'm out running and hear the whole thing, which I think probably goes on for almost 2 hours. So.
I think you could do a marathon in the time of our conversation. But no, it was super, and I have to say, the thing that I don't often drive away from interviews in silence, but because we've been speaking for a good time, and the things he told me, the fact that, you know, he'd done all these kind of things with his life, it's just inspiring stuff. But the final takeaway thing I took was that positivity. You know, he was saying that how he was, you know, might be out fishing with his crew, and it wasn't turning out great, the weather was turning, risk losing money, but he said, "Come on guys, positive vibes, got to have positive vibes." And to look at somebody and to know that, first of all, he's seen life, but also he looks so well, he looks so young, but also just really, really keen to kind of give the idea that, you know, in life there's good and bad, but overall it's positive, and I took away that definitely, because Tony was an inspiring chap to talk to. And Tony, thank you very much for giving me your time.
Yeah, he was amazing. I've always been a big believer in visualising a positive outcome, much to the annoyance of my family and fellow co-workers in the past, but yeah, I think if you think something's going to work out, it often does. And yeah, what a great story that was. So back by popular request, and we have had requests for it, believe it or not, but we talked in the early episodes about phrases that maybe come from the nautical industry, from the nautical world, that are used in everyday life. So chock-a-block is one of those, and chock-a-block refers to the rigging in an old sailing ship where two pulleys would get tightly kind of together as the ropes tightened up, to the extent that nothing could move. The ropes couldn't move because the blocks were so tightly kind of knitted together. So that's chock-a-block, where the blocks are tightly together, things don't move, and that's what we use when we're stuck in a traffic jam or we're stuck in a queue at Tesco. Things are chock-a-block. Again, that's a nautical background. So that's my offering this episode. Have you got a better one, Nigel?
I'm not sure it's better, but I hear about another one, cut and run. If you watch The Apprentice or programs like that, they're always talking about sort of you can smell success in my sweat, and let's just cut our losses and run. Cut and run, though, comes back from when a ship has to make a quick getaway from a harbour. So, for example, an approaching storm or approaching pirates, you'd cut your anchor chain or you'd cut your anchor rope, and off you'd go out into open sea and escape danger. So there you go, cut and run and chock-a-block. Two phrases you maybe never knew came from a maritime background.
Every day is a school day indeed, and I think before too long we might have to cut and run from this cafe. We've been sat here for a good hour and a half, nattering, having fun, recording this episode, but I think unless we buy another coffee, we're probably taking a table that should be needed by another guest. So we should maybe cut and run now, Nigel. We should go away and prepare for some future episodes. I know we've got lots of organising to do, but yeah, watch this space, subscribe to the Full Ahead podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring, please get in touch. My name is Alistair Eagles.
And I'm Nigel Thompson. Thanks for listening.